Okay, this video is meant to illustrate a few things at the level 3 or level 4 solo canoeing, and thinking about the level 3 and level 4 instructor criteria for ACA certification. I believe this move is all by itself on the cusp between L3 and L4 because I catch a somewhat small eddy river center. I think you could fit a second or a third boat in there, so it's somewhere between a small and a large eddy. At L3, we should be able to catch large eddies with leans or tilt. At L4, we should be able to catch small eddies. So catching this river center eddy and stopping would be an L3 move. Catching and continuing on is an L4 move. And so a second thing that this shows is L4 paddling, where I don't simply stop in the eddy, I actually use it to accelerate through the eddy and then leave on a wave trough to catch the far right eddy. We'll watch it one time through and then stop and analyze it. Okay, so just looking at a few things on the approach. I'm doing combinations of forward and cross forward to maintain a hull speed that is a little bit faster than the current. That's going to give me control over my angle as the current speed changes. So here's one final acceleration stroke, and then a static crossbow draw to bring me into the eddy. That turns into a cross forward to accelerate me across and then up the eddy. Another piece to notice, whether thinking about L3 or L4, is that as I'm crossing the eddy line, I adjust my tilt right about there. So bow is just touching the eddy, and by the time my bow is truly in the eddy, I have a tilt towards the inside of my turn. And I think also true to L3 or L4 for an eddy this size, if I simply stayed on my static bow draw, this eddy drains starting about here. And so I am drawing myself back up the eddy to avoid the draining part of the eddy, whether that I'm thinking about L3 or L4. Again, this was meant to be an L4 level demonstration, and so I'm accelerating towards the top of the eddy. And to be honest, I almost overshoot, and so my angle correction here, which is a pry, could be further back if I didn't want to slow myself down. But I'm actually trying to avoid creeping too far forward. I want to skate across or jet ferry across this little wave trough here. So this is a steering stroke, but it's also a braking stroke to help keep me in the wave trough. And as you can see there, I would say my bow is effectively buried in the other wave, which is not necessarily ideal for a jet ferry on a larger wave. But on this smaller wave, the forces of my bow being buried are countered by essentially my hips being buried in the next wave down. That balancing of forces combined with my tilt and momentum across the wave help me glide across here with really no further stroke work other than that forward once I'm essentially already across. And then notice how having my seat in the bottom of the wave trough right now unloads my bow. There's a lot of my bow that's out of the water at the same time that just behind my hips, my boat is effectively pinned by the peak of that wave that I jet ferried across. So that's reducing the current's ability to leverage my pivot point by having my bow out of the water. It's further reducing the leverage on my pivot point by having my stern pinned by the previous wave. Something else I wanted to highlight, especially thinking about the difference for me between L3 and L4. Here I am setting up to use this wave effectively, and once I feel confident I'm established on the wave, look at my gaze. I'm now targeting my final destination. Something at L4 that I look for in instructors is the ability to, like a driver that's learning, like look at your near distance, look at your far distance, look at your near distance, look at your far distance. And when you're doing complex maneuvers, that's not necessarily just going to be looking straight in front of you. You're going to be leading your move with your vision. So let's see where this goes. So there's me looking at my far distance. Here I am looking at my near distance again, just making sure that I like my angle coming off of the wave. Now that I know what my angle is going to be coming into the slack water here, my eyes are on my target, torso engaged forward stroke to accelerate into the fastest current here. The faster I'm coming across a new current, the more control I have over my angle. There's a second torso engaged forward stroke. Notice that the angle of my shaft drops. So in thinking about traditional 2x4 technique, the angle of my shaft is at a sweeping angle, which is helping drive my my bow that way. It doesn't actually move that way because I'm doing that in order to balance the force of the fastest current coming onto my upstream edge. Another forward stroke to accelerate across the eddy line. Watch my top hand drop for a nice low recovery to the cross. It's a cross bow draw initially, turns into a cross forward to accelerate me up the eddy, another cross forward to kind of lock me into the eddy. Just highlighting here, similar to before, that my forward stroke comes in at more of a sweeping angle. So my top hand is centered over my center bag. That I end up having a shaft angle that is not perpendicular to the water. That's essentially a sweeping cross forward stroke to help drive my bow to my left, keeping it in the eddy. Okay, so that's some L4 level paddling on, I'll call that an L3 move, or a hard L3 move to catch that center eddy. If we caught that center eddy, stopped, and then did the ferry as separate moves, that's L3 paddling. To do it as one smooth, continuous move is L4 paddling. Thanks for watching.